Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Hello everyone. Welcome to 5.8G Alive. I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus, and as usual with me,
I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, the other co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Welcome and good evening to you all.
Great. So today we have a blockbuster show. So not a lot of chatting and stuff like that, Jennifer. Last week we had our young people on. Wow. Yes. Thank you for all your feedback. And today we are continuing the discussion. The elders have been brought together. And we are having a similar conversation because one of the things Jan and I realize is, hey, the conversation is the tool, isn't it? And Definitely. What we need to do is learn to talk. So, Jennifer, what do you look forward most to today?
I'm really looking forward because, as you said, from last week to this week, you know, you heard from the younger ones, and it's really quite interesting to hear, you know, the version from the elders. I know you have been hearing from Terri-Ann a lot, and then we heard from Ian Jeffers. So we are getting some different views, and it will be quite interesting. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and engage. Let us know how you're feeling and what you think about it.
Great. So we're continuing our discussion about being in tribe, and you're seeing some interesting people here. Last week we had the young ones who took us on a run, and I want us to just meet these elders who are going to now join the conversation on legacy. So I want to start with our gentleman. Keith, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Keith Wood. I am 64 years of age this year. I'm married with 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Legacy for me is a very interesting discussion to have. It's something we value in our family. And in fact, my family has a lot of generational heritage going backward and forward, and it's actually been formalized and structured in some way, but we're still building it as we go along. So the topic is very close to my heart.
Great.
Working in the financial world and still in it.
Lovely. And Betty.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I'm Betty Joseph. Always been in education, teaching all my life, and really love the idea of leaving a legacy behind, always looking for creative ways to do so. So I would enjoy such a conversation this evening, and I look forward to it.
Fantastic. And lastly, we have Catherine Bethel.
Good afternoon again, everyone. Well, yes, my name is Catherine Bethel. I am a wife of my husband, who we are both founders of Bees Ice Cream. We have 2 children, and I describe that opportunity as a first-generation entrepreneur, first-generation business owner. So when I look back, you know, at my family, parents and the parents, you know, that wasn't the conversation that generation. Yeah. So we are first-generation business owners, first-generation entrepreneurs, and, you know, this conversation is all very, very practical for us. It's our life, and I know that after having such rich conversation and listening to the conversations that you all have been having in the past, it's just going to encourage me to understand more as to, you know, how we could really ensure that, you know, we fine tune what we're doing to ensure that that legacy, you know, continues generation to generation to generation.
Definitely. So, Jan, you want to start us off the conversation?
Yeah, I want to say welcome again to our guests. And I like that what Kathy said about the first generation, not having that conversation before. And now you can start that conversation with your the new generation. And we heard that last week when we asked the younger ones, about their experience and what they know about legacy, etc. So I would like to start with a question. With what legacy, in terms of legacy, what legacy you would have received or handed down to you? I know Kathy mentioned this is the first generation, but maybe Keith, you can start because Keith, you mentioned earlier that your situation is quite different.
In terms of legacy, my parents were always very, very strong in education. That was a big matter for them, particularly my mother pushed it very hard, but also I have family members who have been in education. My aunt, Beryl Wood, and if you don't know that name, she was the first cookbook for using cookery at school many, many years ago. She was one of the first Black women who had a master's degree in Trinidad and Tobago. And she was always, she never got married, but she was always heavy to pushing for us. So whenever we go to visit her, sons, make sure you get your education, get your degree. And we got that drilled into our head over and over and over and over. And my father made sure we visited her fairly regularly, at least maybe once a month, we'd go by her. There was a strong push from that side. Even my mother too had the same idea. And several members of the family, because I have some old aunts from Princestown, my family's from Princestown area, the American community. And they too always push the idea of get your education, it'll change your life, And so what we did, my father and mother didn't have a degree, but they made sure each of us have 1 and 2 degrees, And what is interesting is that from my generation, now, in my case, it's just automatic. It's become part. They just know that they have to do it and they want to do it. They want to do it. They did it. So the legacy for us is strongly education. And enough, we were not taught the idea of getting into business. That was hardly ever discussion held. And people were, we were thrown to or taught that if you could lose your money in business, so go try it. So it was, but strange enough, the second generation, my brothers and myself, we have all gone into business. I suspect my children will in due course in their own time, because it's a lot more open today and there are a lot more ideas and a lot more information available to you that you could actually use for your own development and benefit. So that's where we've been coming from. That's our legacy so far.
And Betty, you want to take up from here?
Yes, I like to think of it, yes, education, very, very important in the family too. But I also like to think of it as well as other stuff that I saw in my parents and in my aunts and uncles and cousins and so on. This willingness to, one, work very hard, whether it's at their education or job. There were also things such as their caring, sharing ways that I always admired. And I often heard the story, for example, of my grandfather who lost his wife and had many children. And he stuck with those children, brought up those children, worked hard, did not leave them, wanted to see them grow a certain way. And to me, that was really an important part of the legacy, this stick-to-itiveness, this willingness to be a good, excellent parent, to love, and that always struck me about him, this great love he had for his children and his willingness to show this love, to me it's an important part of the legacy. And what I'm finding now is that this generation, yes, going for the education, etc., but willing to be caring, sharing people who will work hard at what we need to do, among other things. So, the only unfortunate part of the story, I think, is that not enough time has been spent actually talking about these things.
Yeah.
The example is always set,
Yes.
but not the communication. There's need for more communication. And because I find our people to be really creative people, even as teachers, whatever roles in which we find ourselves. For example, what Jennifer and Terri-Ann are doing, very creative stuff, innovative. And this is part of the legacy they will leave not only for their children, but for ours, the community, etc. The creativity that we must, harness and develop using all our resources, whatever gifts and talents we have. Again, part of the legacy that we will leave behind.
Catherine, as we are talking, Catherine, I know you mentioned not much was said early, but can you recall any aspect that you can relate to legacy and that what is helping you now in creating your legacy?
Yeah, I agree with both Keith and Betty regarding some of the disciplines and some of the values I would have seen, where our parents were concerned, ensuring that now for my situation, my family, my siblings, my brother, my sister, the ensuring that, hey, education first, and I was much younger. My brother and my sister, they are 11 and 12 years old. They were 11 and 12 years older than I am. So I came really. So I saw as a young child, mommy and daddy disciplining, homework, making sure, and the thing is, there was a high value placed on the quality of education too. I saw my siblings went through. So, there's a quote unquote prestige school and all of that. But I saw my brother and my sister go to a private primary school at that time, right? But then things happen, unfortunately, within the family, and I did not get the opportunity to experience that. So I had to go to the regular public school, but the values of making sure that you go to school, all the books are provided for and all of that, was instilled in me. So even though, I would say that I was not the bright girl in the house, there was a determination to make sure and pass the subjects, and always persevere, because what I can say, what I saw, how my parents disciplined my brother and my sister regarding how important it is to ensure that you study to pass your exams and stuff. My dad passed in my early teens. So therefore I didn't have that, but I remember all the nuggets, all the things I would have seen him done, in the house, to make sure penmanship, handwriting must be on point.
Yes.
Oh gosh, I seen them, they drill it. No, I didn't have to, but I saw them every minute they writing until you get that, handwriting down. So I saw all those things, but those things remained with me, and with that, I think that gave me a value there, instilling me that I have to also work hard to achieve what I have to achieve, and to educate myself as well in order to, achieve anything. But hard work, providing for the family. What I saw, my mom was a seamstress, and I saw her beat that sewing machine day in, day out, to provide for us. So the household was a hard-working household. But then all the fruits in the tree, in the yard, I also saw her make guava jam, stew cherries, make this, make that, and then everybody in the neighborhood, was given. So that sharing and caring and, helping as well. So those are some of the legacy points I would have seen, and I think it's part of me. And that too formed you know, the way I think, the way I do things. And I remember certain things good and bad. And I made up my mind that some of the not so good things, I try to ensure that it doesn't continue in the future.
But a question, did any of these parents ever mention the word African, African roots, African ancestry?
Yes.
Or did they just set the example that they got from their foreparents so that we would continue it? Or did you find in your family that anyone mentioned the word Africa?
That question is so valid, Betty, because I can't recall that. You know it's there. You know we seeing that around us because we're not seeing anything else, right? We're not seeing anything else, so we know that there's a strong something about us, you know. And I can always remember Daddy saying, "Do not ever." In his dying years when he was ailing, you know, do not ever make anyone, anything, any race, anybody feel that they're more superior than you are, you know? And those things stuck with me, you know? And you can't achieve anything. My grandfather hearing him saying, remember, you're going to church and always know that God is with you and he will never leave you. So you're not alone. Right? So even though, so those are some of the things that some of those legacy points that I'm standing on. And I think based on my current situation, I am working on, you know, just harnessing that, you know, and making that the, you know, the enabling, you know, environment for the other generation to take up on.
I want to add to that as well. My aunt, and I had two aunts who lived in Princestown, and they were very, very, I mean, you know, two proud Black women. I mean, strong as ever, might took care of themselves. I'm the Americans. So I am American descendant. Yeah. We are growing the family, growing the network locally and internationally. I remember clearly my father would take us down to Princestown. My aunt Tina and Aunt Tassa, her name was Aunt Irene. And they were women who had, you know, powerful, well spoken, commanded the language, commanded ideas. You know, and they always told us, you know, young men, get your education, get to school, do your work, focus on this, be brothers, be a family. You know, and that was drilled into us whenever we met them, whenever we saw them. You know, so I think a lot of us have that kind of root, strong roots, well roots in our history and heritage.
What about you, Betty?
If I remember the question.
In terms of the African being upfront in the conversation.
Right. No, in my home, no. The examples were set, very strong people, but the name, the African heritage, I think as I grew older, and I would never forget once a student who broke my heart. My heart was broken one day when I was introducing an African segment in a lesson and talked about our African ancestry. And he said, my mother and grandfather came from the South. What are you telling me about Africa? I know nothing about this Africa. What are you talking about Africa, you know? And from that, we of course built a whole great kings and queens of Africa, you know, and worked on it, did many things, including they all did the research, chose a king or queen, portrayed the king or queen in a presentation to the entire school so that even the people around them who did not have the opportunity to get out and see and learn and know. Because I guess to them, the few Africans they knew were probably refugees, you know, who were not kings or queens. So they needed to find out about these kings and queens who had strengths, weaknesses, accomplishments, you know, goals and so on. And they did the presentations very well.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You know,
Excellent.
Betty, I think one thing to be, when we think of our legacy and we have these conversations, and Kathy, you're so right. This was not a conscious conversation when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And if I am to answer your question, and I think about it, there was always the discussion of, remember, you're Black. You have to do this better. You
Mhm.
remember, look here,
That's where it went.
look
That's where it
here.
went.
And that notion of don't let anybody make you feel better
Yes.
or that they are better than you. And if we understand our history, I think it would have been very strange for our parents to respond overtly to Africa, given that their parent or grandparent may have been enslaved. In the case of you, Keith, it wouldn't have been enslaved, but certainly involved in the Americans and things like that. So they were at the tail end of nearly 300 years of stripping away African, but they would, and it's only, I think, in the late 20th century that, say, the 50s, 60s with the civil rights movements, and not in the civil rights movement, that the notion of you are African and wanting to go back to identify to the motherland, that's a thing that happened in our adults' life.
True.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why we must honor people like Lancelot Lane. What's his name? Lancelot Lane.
In terms of identity. And you know, the thing about it is, it's so interesting listening to the conversation and the answers in terms of our legacy, because one of the things Jan and I are finding as we're moving through this whole process, especially as we were talking to Ian Jeffers and trying to understand, well, why in this Emancipation months, why is our story seemingly never changing?
Yes.
So there's a current trend of, it's one monotone. And we realize that nobody talks about it. And we are really the first generation that is confident enough to come out and say, we are Black, we have African heritage, and we can look back and see
it.
We have done stuff that we can now, but unfortunately, Jan and I believe, and if our analysis is true, part of the challenge that we face as a race going forward is carrying forth the legacy. And we've decided that one of the things that's missing is these overt conversations. So these discussions are our way of showing how you may have that conversation and how you may chat, you know, because I don't know, and we could probably ask the question to follow up, whether how do we talk legacy to our children? And I know not all of us have children, and probably as you answer the question, and Betty, we could probably start with you. You know, how do you talk legacy as distinct to how legacy was spoken to you?
Right. Well, first of all, I think we are very creative people, and as I just mentioned, what you and Jennifer are doing, it's part of this whole creative flow, you know, where we could talk and we could have, you know, and of course use the technology and so on. We must tap into our creativity, innovative ways that you and Jen are doing, and just present, get people talking, get people listening. I know
think you as a teacher, you having that position to be able to influence and being conscious would have really made a big difference. You know?
Right.
Can I just come in here too? And I want to go back a bit to Betty's question in terms of the discussion that our parents would have had. And my experience would be, and Terri-Ann mentioned it, where I found the conversation in my home was very positive, because my dad had it to ensure that we knew we were not just Black, but being Black children, we had to work harder at everything, because for you to progress and be successful. But the aspect of how the consciousness was about accepting our hair and our features. So if at any time there was any conversation or he heard us talking in those days, if a child hair is very short, we used to say the thing like they have picky head.
Yeah.
So with 5 girls in the house,
Nappy.
yeah. So we had 5 girls in the house where everybody here, the textures vary, we varied textures. So some had what may come under the picky head in those days, some may be whatever. And we were not allowed at all to call either, either the sisters, say anything about picky head or anything about hair, anything about whether your nose broad, anything about your physical, none. Because he would say, all hair is good hair, so you don't want to hear about that. You all are all pretty, so you don't want to hear anybody knows whatever story. So we were very conscious to accept your features and accept your shade black. And he had a thing about high red, high black, all the different things. And his thing was accept what shade of black. One thing you must do, and we all spoke about it, is to be educated. Education was the main thing. So that aspect, and Betty, you asking, how do we, and we discussing this aspect of it, how do we create the legacy? How do we pass it on? And in the conversation, I think for me, and I do it, and I have been doing it with my daughters because I grew up with that kind of conversation from very early. I don't want to hear anything about who here, nothing about hair texture, color of skin, or anything like that. Accept who you are and accept your friends, who they are, how they look, etc. So I think in the conversation could be us really sending all the positive message about the image, etc. in our own way. You as a teacher and whatever role we have with Terri-Ann and myself in terms of how we speak and the image we set and the positive talk. I think
even the pictures in your home could be helpful too.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But Kathy and Keith, what was this? That's in terms of the point that Betty made and we're discussing now.
Yeah.
The conversation.
Catherine, you go first.
As Betty was speaking there, I just kind of reflecting on,
I was reflecting too.
what conversations and, it really wasn't there, but there are some things that was very, you couldn't miss it at all. You couldn't miss it. For example, Jennifer just spoke about you didn't have conversations about texture of hair and stuff like that. I mean, I quote unquote had a picky head, because let's say, for example, my grandparents, they're from Guadeloupe. My grandma was from Guadeloupe. So therefore, there was a mix. So my sister is very fair. So my sister is very fair, and here texture is very different, right? But still, you're right. It didn't have that conversation at all, within the household. So you just one unified point of being confident in who you are in spite of what, and I think that too, I shared with you all earlier about the difference, the age gap and the different types of education and all of that. And still with it was not glaring. It didn't come across as in any way to make you feel inferior, or anything like that. So there was just that oneness as a family. But most important, we all knew based on legacy that we have to work hard for anything that we want.
Yeah.
That's most important. And a confidence, that confidence in who you are, whether you're bright, whether you're here picky, whether you're, there's a confidence in who you are, and whatever you have to achieve in life, whether it's an exam you're going to sit, whether it is something you're going to pursue, we always knew that we have to go at it and achieve it, overcome it. So there's that resilience, and because mom, she was a seamstress, she was creating all sorts of different styles. So there's that creativity, so we knew as well that we have in us the ability to create, innovate, whatever it is that, we have to, so I think, I'm not too sure if I'm answering the question, but I mean, that's the type of conversation, but I think it's meaning the same thing, but it's just in a different way where our house.
Yeah. In my case, I have two brothers. We grew up 3 boys. So there were no girls in the equation. So that's a whole different dynamic. So we are born 1 year apart, almost month to month. There's March, and May. So we were very close. I mean, we were like a tight bond. But what I remember is that my mother in particular, father was a more quiet person. He was the provider of the home. He always looked at where we're going as a family, what we're doing, and to a great extent that's I've taken on that role in my family. Where I set the strategic plan, to use that word, and I'll share that with you later on in the discussion today. But I kind of said the strategic plan which he has done for us. And my mother always said to us, get your education. And my mother was clear, and my aunt as well pushed the idea, you must get your degree. You must get your degree. Because she had done her first degree and bachelor's and then master's. And she was one of the early Black women in Trinidad and Tobago to get a master's degree. Early, since the 1952, somewhere around there, she did her degrees. So she was what you call a trailblazer in those days. That was like a woman, a Black woman, 2 degrees. Where you come, who pushed you? But she was never married. She had no husband, no children. So her life was basically her life, and she was able to manage and know what you call chart her own course and create her life. But that now spilled over into my generation, where she established those values for us. That this is a value you must set, and you must attain it and achieve it. And and by God, my parents made sure that we follow through.
We've talked about the kinds of conversations that would have been going on in our home, coming, Betty, from that very insightful question about whether it was a conscious Afro reference to your Africanness. And what we realize is that, no, there wasn't an African, and that may have been a historical situation, but let's start thinking about what is going on now. We are building legacies. And what we call legacy is whatever you're doing today to create something of value that can be passed on. And then we talk about this a lot. Very often we put something of value down to dollars and cents, degrees, and we tend to forget soft
value,
the values, the character and stuff like that. Let me ask you all, how are you building on that legacy, and what are you creating today?
Well, the platform of creating that or being that first generation business owner is one, right? And that we could always, talk about that.
But can we please talk about that? Can we please talk about that? Because one thing that is clear is a lot of the Black household conversation was around education. Yeah. Go to school, get qualified, be good, and business was something that white people do. We did not. So tell us that story.
Well, yes, even though I said that we are the first generation business or entrepreneur in our family, my mom was a seamstress.
Yes.
You know, she was a seamstress. So she was using her skills and talents to generate the income to take care of the family, right? So that was industry happening right there in a very small scale, right? And that really was my first activity in business, you know, because I also going to school used to go to Jimmy Abood. I was at that age a wholesaler buying bowls of clothes, and I used to make the outfits for my friends on the street. When their time to go out and lime or whatever, they would say, okay, I want an outfit, and I cut. Because another thing I think that is important for us to note, community. Don Victor Dow Designs was from Presbyterian Road, San Juan.
Yeah.
I used to go help her, right?
Mhm.
Peter Minchell, the river, right? Even though at that point in time, I didn't do a sewing course, but I learned from observation and seeing mommy sew.
Yeah.
I could have sewn. So I also sew endless river costumes night after night after night, utilizing that natural talent, or you know.
Yeah.
So I think there is, if we probably study it some more, right? There are some households, there are some of us who have that in us. But the thing is, there's the opportunity for it to come out, for it to harness and to develop, right? And I believe that is only when, you know, things are bad. There's, you know, what am I going to do now? You know,
Last resort.
well, you have to boil down to, okay, what I have in my hand, what can I do? And Bees Ice Cream is a story started with ignorance and fire, because we didn't know anything about ice cream, right? It was going down into, and I always say this, is going down into St. James, which was the hub of homemade ice cream, and seeing the lines and seeing people lining up to buy homemade ice cream. But the conversation among certain youngsters at that point in time, the persons who own that ice cream down in St. James, Wilbur Balgobin of Shogunas, who was the Willie's ice cream, my husband and other persons, mama. It was a conversation about what we're going to do as a community of fellas, you know, they want to do something, and I there just, you know, listening, not really fighting up, because I don't know anything about ice cream. I wasn't at that point in time going to school. I was doing secretarial duties. I was doing shorthand. I was doing typing. I was looking to go into some office somewhere to work. So I was, but
respectable work.
because of beginning the conversation, and then too for us as women and couples and husband and wife, we have to support each other, and that is where it was. So it's hearing that conversation going on, and at that point in time, we had a young baby, parents. Very well, my parents was old, because remember I told you I came 12 years after, so my mom was already 50 when she had me, right? So therefore she couldn't do much to help us, and the mother-in-law was already, so we did not have any support of any parents. So something had to be done to provide for our young family. What was it, right? And my husband is the one who liked to make peanut punch and pumpkin punch. He was the man who had that knack. I didn't know anything about putting any milk together to make anything, right? So, but it was out of something had to be done. We see an opportunity there. It's not following, because sometimes in business, persons like to say, well, okay, you see this person doing that, and you're going to copy and you're going and follow. No, it wasn't about that, because what we saw in St. James, we thought, you know, maybe we can do the same. We can probably do something like this. Andy was the welder fabricator at that point in time. He is the one who was working in the construction industry. And in that era, the economy went down. He lost his job, but he could have welded. So he welded up this cart, right? And took the concept of putting ingredients together. I cannot call it ice cream at that point in time because right? So we put milk, coconut, and make a coconut.
A punch. A punch.
But because there's always that inner desire to do things the right way, you find that the continuous improvement, you're learning and we growing and we, and so every time, okay, we get a good review, you get a bad review, you come back and you rework it again to get it right until one day public health told us, hello, that's not ice cream you're making there. There's something called fat that you need to have. There's something called a percentage of milk solids that you need to have. The flavor strong, you know it's coconut, you know it's soursop, you know it's peanut. But hear what? There's the science of ice cream. Get yourself and learn how to do this thing right. And that is where, listening to critics, listening to good feedback that could be what you don't want to hear because you figure you're making the best thing in the world, but really and truly you are not really complying to the standards. So there is where I think that is where I came in because I was an OJT in Warsaw. OJT in Warsaw, waiting for Warsaw to hire me, right? Getting my $332 stipend. I was very, very, very happy with it.
So Kathy, after that story, tell me, what was your status in your family? Having gotten your good WASA job after you did work hard with your education, you're in line for career status in WASA, and there you are, pick up with this man and you make this unemployed construction worker. Let's get
unemployed construction worker with no education. You stand up on the side of the streets in Kireb Junction selling ice cream. What? I was crazy. In fact, they went crazy. They went. I had friends that were passing me straight. I had people laughing at me. I had
what year was this?
And they weren't in support at that point in time. It's like, what are you doing? I was providing for my family. I was providing honest income to the household to take care of my daughter. And that was our why, and that was our reason. There were people who supported us, right? Persons not 100% blood, right? That was supporting us. And I think that is one of the problems with us, that true family, unity, support. I don't want to say that the support was not there because Andy brothers and they were all in support of him and all of that. After a while, I think everybody came around and realized.
After you were succeeding. After they saw success, after they saw evidence of success.
But people are buying into this thing, and, customers are growing and people are liking, and coming back and you start seeing lines. And when you go out there with 3 to 4 tubs, you're coming back empty, so they're looking, and so the negative comments or the not so supportive comments started to, disappear. And then you start seeing, the support and, and the encouragement and things coming on, right? I mean, coming from a family where your brother and your sister, so educated and they have the quote unquote good government job, and you out there on the street, or sometimes you come home and you're chipping up, cutting up coconut, you're grating coconut and doing these things. It's like, but I believe, it's not about, it's really not about studying what another person is doing, Really, it is about you being true and honest to yourself, and happy and proud about what you are doing.
Yeah.
See young people, and they had trouble answering this question. When we ask them, identify what you're doing now as part of building foundation for legacy. It's so easy for us to go to a conversation for the future. And I think one of the things when people looking on that we want people to see is it's okay to talk about that process, just as Kathy talked about that on the side of the road, because very often the building process had a lot of shame and failure and try again. And we don't talk about that. We talk about the outcome. So I want you to reflect on your process of building that career to be in a position where you can tell someone, look at me and listen to me. So what was that like?
Okay, got you. Well, there were two areas. One, when I was, seeking formal employment out there, I didn't always get what I wanted at all. There are times when, you did what you had to do, but while learning, always learning. But I knew deep down what I wanted to teach and how I wanted to impart things to students and so on. So there were times when it was tough. I even recall on one occasion a principal in another country saying to me, so how did you survive when you first arrived with the language? She thought that in my country we didn't speak English.
Yes.
So this was in a staff meeting, mind you. And so I worked on that even after formal employment elsewhere. I tried different programs and they were not always successful because reaching young people is sometimes very difficult.
What were some of the stories in that journey? Because I think the important thing is for people to hear. They'd see you now as a successful educator and doing these programs, but what were some of the challenges and the setbacks that would have given you legitimacy now?
All right. I remember on one occasion moving to a new country.
Which country was that?
To America.
Yeah.
To the US, because as I said, I wanted a certain type of training. I wanted to impart a certain type of knowledge and it wasn't happening. So I wanted to try something different. My parents didn't understand this decision at this stage in my life, first degree completed, etc., to just pick up and move. And I did it. And initially, because you're in a new country and you have to get certain things organized, and thank God they did work in the end. Yes, you are in a foreign country, but you have decided that no matter what, you're going to make it. And with the help of the great source, God, I did. And again, as you had mentioned in one of your pieces before, help from other people. You never really make it on your own, especially if you are the adventurous type who want to see the world and do things differently instead of, remaining in the status quo. There's always someone helping, whether it's a cousin, a relative, a friend, whoever. There's always help around the corner. So with that kind of help, and with God's perfect timing, I would say, you get into the right job. You work hard, again, the importance of resilience, hard work, and you keep moving and things improve. You are able to continue your education, you get the better jobs, you do the exams. So bit by bit, things improve, but it was not always a perfect situation, far from it. It entailed hard work,
Jen, would you agree that
falling in the snow?
Yeah, you know, it's this story because in most of the stories we go to the end. And I think people appreciate what you have to give when they understand
Yes,
the truth and the trouble.
it's
And so,
true. And yet, in spite of it, I must say, I've been quite fortunate. And you know what it is? It's also looking at your situation and recognizing what resources do I have? What can I make use of, So that there's always some gift, some skill, some resource that could help to move you an inch closer to the goals.
yeah, yeah. All right. So we
And
can,
writing the goals, writing, journaling is also very important. It
nice, nice.
reminds you where you've been, because sometimes when I read some of my old stuff, I say, wow, I really did that. Boy, you mean I had the energy to do that?
Good. But let's hear from Keith. Your journey. You're building this foundation. What have you built and are you building?
The 7 Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, and he wrote a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families. So I did the course many, many years ago, and I was just blown away by that course. And made me, when I got married and had my children, I did the course, and we decided here what we're going to do. We're going to implement that course in our life as well, to help us to guide each of us to our goals and our future, and to create the future that we want out of life. And I think from that point on, we sit down as a family. We sit down and do every year a family strategic plan. And we've been able to, discuss what we want to do. And by discussing every your views, it created them in their minds, what we wanted for them, or what we'd like to see for them. And it also helped them to clarify in their minds what it is they want to do with themselves. They have, in fact, veered off and veered back on and move around and change and all of that. But what it helped them to really do as young men, because 2 boys and a girl, young men and young women, was to crystallize in their mind, much younger than most of their friends, where they wanted to go in their life.
For us to be able to start the business, Andy's mom gave Andy the downstairs, a little room downstairs of the house, a little room, a little 8x8 little room, downstairs of the house to start the business, and that is something I hear many times when, you might have someone with an idea, a business idea, and they don't get the support. There isn't anything to give them that buffer, or that starting support. So I think that is one thing that cannot be out of our conversation at all. What made it easy for us to start. And it came from that parent that say, you know what, okay, you all want to, use this room. The most important thing is, though, that generation, our parents, or, for us as elders, when we hear our children, having an idea, a desire to start something, is giving them that level of support, something that they could stand on, to build on. They have other interests. They want to be in the business, but from a distance and from their own way, but in their own way. But I must say that even though my daughter, she's developing, she has her first degree, her master's, she is developing her own tech platform, but at the same time, she's also trying to enhance the business with her passion and desire for technology.
Excellent.
Right? My son is a young attorney. He's an associate with a firm. So he has now taken all the files and trying to make everything is in order, like that. So they're doing, their part in their, but we know that the legacy is there for them, and they will, they will take over and what they have to do with
Excellent.
I think one of the things that we and the round off discussion is as we are discovering just as when you started, the first question we asked was, what did you get from your ancestors? And from all of us, it wasn't direct. No one sat down and said,
No.
handing you this one, handing you that.
No.
It was
That's right.
observation of hard work, virtues, discipline, whatever, but it was education, seamstress, working hard that we got by, as they say, osmosis, you know. And one of the things that we are learning in this emancipation journey, and we criticize the youth, we, 5.8G, criticize the youth. And when we ask the question, you know, what is that really like? So are we talking to the next generation, and it might not be to our children? Are we talking to anybody in the next generation in a way that allows them to learn from our real experiences, both the successes and the failures and the twins? Are we having those conversations?
Yes.
I will have to say yes, because you all know from when I was asked when the business was started, it's 30-something years now. And we do have staff that has been with us 20-something years plus. And there are staff members who have been, you know, taken in and have been, you know, some of them describe the business as a family-based like business. So there are some of them who have been there long-standing, very dedicated, very hardworking, supportive, loyal staff. They have their own business. They have their own outlets. And the conversation is happening based on, okay, we have to put the infrastructure in place for those who have been there working hard to be developed managerial wise and all of that, so they can hold the position to keep the business going as well.
Yes, please.
Terri-Ann, you know, I have my business too as well. Yeah, and I have been nurturing my son, but I've also been asked to nurture or mentor two other people in the also general insurance. And I've been nurturing, working on them and showing them how to do it well, you know. So even if they want to maintain or continue, I mean, I may formally retire in about 6 or 7 years. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But my son is interested in business and he has learned and he has done some work already. But I have two mentees who are working with me, and they could take over, and it will transition very smoothly. And you know, but a formal, of course, we have to get a formal structure in place, a legal structure to ensure it goes well. That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah. Well, first, within the extended family, what I realized I need to do, since they don't listen as much as I would like them to, I have to learn. I have to learn to adjust, adapt. So I don't speak as much, or let them know I'm there to support. Of course, there are some boundaries as well. But within the extended family, the youth, they must know that there's support, that they can come and ask or talk when necessary. Also, as I said before, the life skills programs that have become very popular. I try to present some topics through workshops and so, well, of course, now it's all technology. And I'm writing a book for young, mainly African women to assist with life skills.
Great, great.
You know?
So legacy in a book, legacy in business, two legacies, legacy in business with Kathy going from your family to the workers, and keep legacy not only in business, but legacy in terms of your children being focused and goal-oriented and so on. Yes. And sharpening the tool of conversations.
And workers.
And workers, that's why I said extended family, workers and your own children. Yes. Jennifer, what do you think about all that?
Yes, as we wrap up, what came out very strongly to me is, and we're talking about passing on the legacy or creating this legacy for the younger generation. And I just want to, reinforce that conversation, which I think is key, and it came across. We need to have that conversation. The conversation should be ongoing. Let me put it this way. But what I found didn't come out much, and I'm wondering if it is maybe necessary, is that yes, having a conversation, but within the conversation, if we could link it to the our being Black, the African, ancestry, and this is what I think lacked with us in our generation. Yes, there was a conversation, work hard, study hard, etc., but it was never linked to our history.
Mhm.
And that, to me, in having a conversation, I think could be linked better, because from listening to the youths last week, if I could call them youths, they said the same thing. There wasn't a conversation about really African history, and so they didn't know much. And I feel maybe we can add that into the conversation a little more. This is just me, hearing it. So that consciousness, I think we need to be a little more, maybe pass on that. What came again is that, yes, we are supporting. We definitely, I'm hearing the support, what Keith said, which is having every year for his children to talk about their goal setting. Betty spoke about the life skills. Kathy spoke about not just her children, but also the employees. But what also coming out to us is that we need to maybe help them build their creativity, because all of us here, spoke about, we started being very creative. And again, in passing on, we could be guilty of not pushing the creativity more and not allowing them to know that, hey, let's do this. So my thing is great for us leaving a legacy, but allowing them to forge their own identity, because I am also guilty in ways sometimes when you see they are not doing things in the norm,
how you want it done,
how we wanted it. And I remember being told that, I cannot put them in a box. This is my frame. They don't want to be in it. And sometimes we are either scared, we don't see the bigger picture for them. And we could easily for us not to listen. And Betty said it just now. I mean, we feel we know because we have the experience, but we're not encouraging them to go the way they want to go, because it may not be a way acceptable. And Kathy, you would know that when you started the ice cream. So I think that in terms of our legacy is allowing them to take it from where we have it and take it in the way they see that it can go, because they have a whole different now with technology and things. So I would end here by saying that open door, I think hearing we all willing to support, open to change, and definitely want to pass on a legacy to the younger generation. So I think this great, the discussion is fantastic. We learned a lot from it, and I'm sure our viewers, those who watching on, both young and old, would have learned a lot from what has been said, this evening.
Great. So I really, and just to have your closing comments before we end it off, in terms of this process, is this conversation good rehearsal for a legacy conversation to have with young people, whether it's your own children or others? Is it different
I think
conversation
it
that you would
is.
normally have? Yes, Betty.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is because there are some points that were raised over the past month that have also set me thinking as well. So, about one, being prepared, of course,
Correct.
and of course, tweaking my approach to ensure that there's success in sharing. I have to think along those lines, tweaking even further. So yes, many points were raised that have raised my consciousness even further. And I will be spending more time ensuring that I consciously impart, that I don't just say, resilience and so on, but I show examples of how our people did it, and so we can continue to do it and share it with those coming.
Definitely.
I agree, and I hope that this conversation will continue, and this is not the last, pertaining to this legacy and who we are as a people, and how we can really ensure that that legacy that we are leaving, for the next generation is really solid for them to build on. I took what Jennifer said. Yes, for us as parents and our generation, as as the elders, we fix in our ways. We know the hard work we went through. We know the sacrifices we made, and then children come and they're happy go lucky, and we expect them to operate in a particular way. But I take the point too that we have to really allow them. We have to really allow them to bring their own uniqueness, their own style, their own creativity into what we would have already, established. It is a tough thing. I must tell you, it is very hard to do, but it is needed. And in addition, that conversation as who we are as a race and where are we in society, and what are we going to do to ensure that we strengthen, ourselves as a people.
Yes, please.
I second that.
I want to endorse all the points Kathy said and Betty said, and I want to say that this is a good thing we're doing here. Keep on doing. We have to keep on doing it and hold the discussions with our families as well. Have the discussions, have it at home. We used to sit down in Africa in the generations gone by, sit down as a glass group and talk what they call the tribe talk. Keep the tribe going, build the tribe.
So, Jen, I would let you finish.
Oh, well, you ended there, and I don't have anything else to say again, but wish everybody all the best, and that we continue to give that support to families. And as Terri-Ann said, when you say families, don't have to be nuclear family. So we continue to support all with one goal, to build a very strong legacy out there for the next generation.
Great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Jennifer, we the 5.8G cohort need to practice talking about where we came from, how we create our legacy so we can pass it on. This was a wonderful conversation.
Yes, and we would like, maybe as we move along, Terri-Ann, we could invite the audience, have small groups, just informal, not on our 5.8G live show, not on this show.
Yeah.
But, have some conversations, maybe on Zoom. When we open back up, we may be able to physically get together. But we can look at having some conversations, maybe very small groups, invite you all to come on board and, discuss about legacy, because you really need to start the conversation, have the conversation, continue with the conversation, I should say.
Yes. So we're letting you know, this is the last Wednesday in August.
Yes.
Happy emancipation to everyone. But emancipation is not seasonal for us. And it's not so much emancipation as our discussion on legacy. We are going to continue. So stay tuned. There is more to come. And have a great week. See you next week.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
50 Plus Tribe and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.